my name's Gill Walton, and this is an interview that I'm recording for Josie at Artists Insights. So Josie came up with all the questions, but they are voiced by my partner John, because obviously with social distancing, Josie can't be in the studio with me. So and if it's edited, it's because I have very naughty dogs that bark a lot. So I hope you enjoy the interview.
Did you always plan on pursuing a career in the arts from a young age?
Yes. Well, you could frame it the other way. Had you ever thought about doing anything else? No. So right from being a child, it was always working in the arts was always the thing that I was going to do, really.
Has your style changed or developed throughout your career?
Very much. There are certain threads that have run all the way through, and certain themes keep popping up every now and then. But when I started out, my degree was initially in sculpture, and I changed to painting about 20 years ago when I had my children. So in a 30-odd year long career, it's moved through sculpture and painting, through conceptual to much more figurative, and all over the place, really.
In many of your paintings you use oil paints on aluminium. How did you discover this technique and what attracts you to these media?
Right, so painters have been painting on metal for centuries. They used to paint on copper. Before aluminium existed, they used to paint on copper, and they used it because it was a very long-lived material that wasn't going to change. I went to see an exhibition a few years ago where somebody had painted a lot of their paintings. He was a very well-respected painter, and it was a retrospective, and some of his paintings were on plywood and hardwood, and some of them had bent, some of them were mouldy, and I decided that was never going to happen to me. But when I started painting on aluminium, it wasn't just the stability of it that I enjoyed and the smoothness of it, but as soon as I started painting on that surface, the way that I applied paint changed completely to applying paint onto canvas, and it was really only then that I started to develop my painting style properly.
Within many of your compositions, including Self-Compassion and China Girl, the figure is presented wearing a colourful headdress or adornments.
Yes. Oh yes, and look, I've just done some with headdresses just now.
What's the significance of these accessories, and do you think these details contribute to the depiction of your subject's character?
Well, significance. I think the main reason I like to use them is because they don't confine a painting to a time or a place. These sorts of headdresses, it could be something from the Renaissance, it could be from you know, a towel wrapped around a head, or a tea towel or something like that, or cloth. So I like them because it makes them timeless, but it also makes them almost historic at the same time, if that makes sense. I know that's a contradiction. That's the main reason, I think. But also then I get to play around with the colours of the headdresses too. So.
Does your approach to painting and sculpture differ?
They are very different processes. So yes, but my subjects are almost figurative, especially now. And so when I make sculpture, it's figurative. So it's the same subject, but the results are always very different because the processes are so different.
Two parts to this next one. What attracts you to the work of Van Eyck, and how do you take inspiration from the likes of Caravaggio, Turner, etc., without mimicking their work?
That's a good question. Without mimicking their work, it's the things that I love about those Baroque type of paintings is that they have such a sense of drama and narrative, and they achieve that mainly by use of light, very dramatic lighting. If you think about Caravaggio, he was one of the earliest painters to use a single directional light and a lot of dark behind the figures, and that's one of the things that really draws me to those paintings. So I think understanding them helps with the inspiration, but then it's important to use your own painting style and your own source material, your own ideas with that, but at the same time understanding what painters have done in the past. But I just love looking at their work. Can never get enough of that sort of work.
In the past, you've worked within the psychiatric services and delivered art groups to mental health patients for 7 years, I think. Do you think the process of creating is beneficial for mental health?
Oh gosh, yes, definitely yes. In all senses, yes. There are so many artists have used their art process to maintain their own mental health. So if you think of Louise Bourgeois, whose work I adore, she did a painting called Artist Sanity, and it is it's how I process emotions and feelings, and I hope those emotions and feelings come out in the paintings too. But it's a very soothing thing that when you're painting, you're concentrating so much on the work that you can't ruminate, you can't think about anything else. Like that concentration is so intense that it's a form of mindfulness or meditation. So yes.
Okay. You've said previously that in the studio you sometimes cut up life drawings and place them with other drawings to get compositions for paintings. And when you put two figures together, you instantly get a dialogue or a narrative. Is this dialogue or narrative an important focus within your work?
Yes. As I said before, I love those painters that whose paintings have a real sense of drama and narrative, stories going on. There are stories within the painting that we just glimpse at, and then we can make up things about what's going on in the painting. I love paintings that hint at something else going on. So as soon as you do put, so I've got these. These on their own would be very different paintings. If you put two together like that, then it says something else. If I put her facing her like that, it changes them from.
If your paintings, such as Swimming with Demons, you pair figures with fantastical imagery, such as a girl swimming with an octopus. What are you trying to capture by using such contrasting imagery?
Right, well, my paintings are mainly concerned with the condition of being human. They're all about people, and when I do include animal imagery in there, it's more to do with those sort of Jungian archetypal subconscious beings So when I put animals in, they're animals that speak more about what's going on within. So they, that's difficult to explain. If I could put it into words, I would not be a painter. But the paintings are, they, by pairing figures with these creatures, it suggests certain things. It opens up subconscious feelings, and that might mean different things to other people than they do for me. But they come from dreams, that sort of thing, nightmares.
Okay. Colour is another key aspect within your work, from bright turquoises to softer flesh tones. What's the significance of a figure's bright red hair within pieces such as the Marquesa, the heron, fluffy pink cows?
Right, well, obviously I love red hair, and as a child I always wanted red hair myself. But in terms of the paintings, it's to do with the vibrancy of the colour. If you have blonde hair, dark hair, brown hair, they're all tertiary colours, whereas red hair, it's much more of a secondary colour. And within my colour palette, I tend to mainly use primary colours and mixed secondary colours, and I don't have a lot of those muddy browny tonal colours within my colour palette. So I do a lot of colour opposites, blue and orange, red and green, that sort of thing. And so red hair just keeps that vibrancy of colour, keeps the secondary colours in there, and it just looks amazing with blue.
Okay, and the final question that's targeted specifically at you. During lockdown, you've been working on a series of lockdown portraits as part of the Artist's Support Pledge. You've been using charcoal, beeswax and silver, and giving each one a medieval name in reference to the Black Death.
Yes.
You've described the monochrome portraits as giving the feeling of confinement and claustrophobia, and all the conflicting emotions brought on by the pandemic. Does the above sum up your personal response towards the lockdown? And did you find any sense of relief by working on the series?
Yes. So that series of work was very much, it was absolutely a direct response to what was happening to us all. Prior to the pandemic hitting, then I was working on big, like the one behind me, big colourful Baroque paintings with lots of symbolism in them. But that, as soon as lockdown hit, that just didn't seem right. I couldn't, I mean, my studio is here at home, so I could have carried on doing what I was doing, but it just, you know, the world changed and it didn't seem right to carry on doing the same sort of stuff. And so I immediately started to work on very small paintings, drawings initially, drawings with graphite, going back to really simple monochrome images. And I can't show you any because I sold them all. They were definitely a way of working through what was happening. They were a way of me processing, and yes, they were small. They filled a small space, so they mimicked that sense of confinement. They were all about emotions and feelings, and they had silver masks, and I liked that elemental use of materials. So they used graphite and beeswax and silver. And silver's been known since before the time of the Black Death for its microbial properties. But I also wanted them to echo that time, historical time around the Black Death. So they were icon shaped, icon sized, like paintings of that time. So those pieces were very important, and for me marked a very important time in our history, but they also seem to strike a chord with other people. So I don't know if you're aware of the Artist Support Pledge, but that was started during the pandemic by another artist, Matthew Burrows, as a way of people selling work online and small works. And I sold everything that I made of that series. So they obviously struck a chord with other people too, and I've heard a lot of people have got back to me who own them and have said that they've provided a lot of solace and comfort to them too. So they were very healing for me, but they were also healing for other people. So that was fantastic. That was a success. So
what is the most important lesson you've learned during your career?
Right. That one's easy actually. It is to just keep working. If you hit setbacks, keep working. If things are going well, keep working. If whatever happens, just keep on in the studio and keep working. That's all I can say about that one. It's so important.
Okay. Second question. Do you think the value of the arts is overlooked in society, including in the education system?
Absolutely, definitely. It's so important on so many levels, to working creatively. It doesn't just result in an object. It helps people's brains develop. It helps people's hearts and souls develop. It's so important. And there were times in history where artists were valued. If you look back at the Renaissance, artists were like the rock stars of the time. They were valued more highly than footballers are today. And I kind of wish we were back in that kind of era, really, because I think artists are better for the soul than, dare I say it, art is better for the soul than football.
Question number 3. If you could own one artwork, what would it be?
Oh my goodness, there are so many that I just love looking at. I'd love a Jenny Saville. I'd love a Louise Bourgeois. I'd love, oh gosh, there are so many. Caravaggio. But it would probably be a Vermeer. I mean, Vermeers are, when you look at them, there's something about them. There's a stillness about them. And I could just carry on looking at Vermeer forever. The Pearl Earring or the Milkmaid or any of them. And there are only 47 of them in existence, which probably makes them even more precious. So it would probably be a Vermeer.
The penultimate question. If you could leave a legacy behind, what would it be?
That is really difficult. So when I think about Turner, I did a lot of research on Turner last year, and he bequested his entire life's work to the nation and a building to house it in, and that became Tate Britain. I mean, what a legacy that is. And then when I think about Louise Bourgeois, who worked until she was about 94, and the last body of work that she did, she was a frail old woman, was called I Give It All Away. and it was like she was just giving herself in her work to anybody that wanted to see it. And you know, what else can you do? That would be it, really. Just a humble painter, and that's
okay. And finally, have you got any exciting new projects on the horizon?
Oh, well, I've got a project that was put on hold at the end of last year called Her Gaze, which is looking at the self-portraits of women artists throughout history. So Artemisia Gentileschi through to Elizabeth Vigée Lebrun, Gwen John. You know, there are hundreds of them. And what I would like to do is just do little tiny paintings of their eyes, so that we're seeing them through their own eyes. And it's a way of cataloguing the work, showing admiration for the work, and marking these women that were often put into art history books as sidelines or written out altogether. So there's that. But I've got a few. I'm a Society of Scottish Artists Satellite Associate for the Scottish Borders. I've got some pieces in a couple of SSA exhibitions coming up. That's quite exciting. And I have, hopefully, art fairs coming up next year. But I think since the pandemic, my general body of work will have changed. It will have changed. So I can't really say what's coming up. It will develop. Watch this space. Thank you.